Space convulsed like glass under the treads of the crawler as we climbed the last kilometer toward the pole star array. All winter, the four of us had been alone at 86 feet, hemmed in by wind slabs and the shimmering auroras that passed for night fight. Isolation breeds a special vigilance. Any change, however slight, burns itself into the mind. That was why I noticed the missing star before the door had even finished cycling open. I stood on the snow grating, blinking up through my goggles. Between Orion's belt and Rigel, the sky held a pin-sized vacancy, black on black, where Zeta Orionis should have burned. I told myself it was a trick of the visor or of fogged lenses, but the unease followed me inside. 10 below, Engineer Faisal muttered, checking the crawler's hydrogen cells before sealing the lock. Warming plates glitching again. We'll strip it tonight. I mumbled agreement, already halfway toward the communications loft. If one photomultiplier was misaligned, we could read a star out of existence. Yet the sensor logs were clean. Every optic in tight calibration. Only the sky was wrong. That night clouds banked across the plateau, and we lost the chance to verify by eye. The arrays, however, saw through everything. I wrote an automated query. Compare current right ascension catalog with last week's. Flagged discrepancies larger than 1 arc-second. The answer arrived at 246, 27 stars unaccounted for. 27 new ones present. I fetched a thermos of sulfurous coffee from the galley and woke Sergei Petrenko, our cryptus linguist. Technically, the National Science Council called him an interdisciplinary semiotician. But to me, he was the man who spoke for the universe. He listened while I spilled numbers across the desk. It's not uncommon for dim variables to be misclassified, he said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. But Betelgeuse isn't dim. Nor is Bellatrix, I added, highlighting one of the missing. They didn't fade, Sergei. They moved. He frowned. Stars don't move on human timescales. Unless what we're seeing aren't stars. At dawn we hauled Hannah Kim, our graduate intern, from her bunk. Basil joined with a solder gun still clamped behind one ear. The four of us jammed into the observatory's dome, puffing steam like kettle vents. Outside, the storm had lifted, revealing a sky scraped clean of clouds. Even with the unaided eye, I could trace alterations. A daisy chain of lights curving beneath Canis Major, where no constellation belonged. A hook of brightness stitched above the Southern Cross. Anna's intake of breath frosted in the air. It looks arranged. Exactly. The unlabeled points, plotted in software, linked into angles too precise for chance. Someone or something had pinned a message through the heavens. Could be satellites? Faisal suggested weakly. Not at 15,000 light-years, I replied. A silence followed, filled by the creak of the dome's track wheels. That afternoon, Sergei commandeered the comms computer. He overlaid the anomalous coordinates onto a sphere, rotated, unwrapped, seeking geometry. Then, without warning, he seized a grease pencil and began sketching on the plexiglass window. Straight lines, he muttered. Intersections at 5' multiples. They're drawing glyphs, one hemisphere at a time. Glyphs that mean what? I can't tell yet. The Antarctic treaties require public sharing of astronomical data, so I packaged a sanitized brief and fired it across the iridium net. Do-do-do-do-do. 90 minutes later, a Cambridge radio astronomer confirmed parallel sightings. JPL chimed in next, then Mount John in New Zealand. The same odd pattern, the same vanished giants of Orion. By then, night had fallen again and the heavens blazed with rearranged geometry. Whole constellations now looked like letters from an alien typeface. Loops, stems, cross diagonals, kilometers long by line of sight. Sergei video captured the sky and ran Fourier transforms looking for modulated brightness, as though the stars themselves pulsed Morse. Nothing. The message lay in shape alone. 2 days passed. Sleep turned into 1-hour naps stolen beneath engineering consoles. Satellites delivered new imagery hourly. Each update showed further edits. Well-known stars sliding across space. False ones blooming, chords of brilliance snapping taut like piano wire. Whichever agency orchestrated the sky had unimaginable power. Stellar engines, or faster-than-light projectors, mechanisms beyond physics. We groped for clues in magnitude shifts, radial velocities, spectra. None of it helped Sergei crack the syntax. On the third day, global media discovered the phenomenon. Grainy telephoto lenses from Johannesburg and Nagoya flooded the internet. Conspiracy sites ignited. Governments issued bland statements about ongoing analysis, which fooled exactly no one. Flights filled with pilgrims chasing a glimpse of the living zodiac. On the plateau, we kept working. At 5:12 UTC on the 6th morning, Sergei emerged from the loft with a laser pointer and a tremor in his hands. He projected a star field, then traced lines between specific nodes, folding the diagram inward until it resembled a three-dimensional ideogram. Think of it in 4 space, he said, making the pointer dance. These intersections map onto themselves if you treat them as temporal steps. What looks flat is actually sequential. Sequential what? Phonemes. Or, his voice cracked, syllables, maybe. I can't be sure. Give us something solid, Sergei, Faisal pleaded. He inhaled through his nose. Working hypothesis. Warning. The structure resembles hazard pictographs, diagonal stripes, exclamation points. Imagine a cosmic caution sign built from sun-sized bulbs. Heat blanched my face despite the cold. Warning of what? He rubbed his temples. I'm missing 2 glyphs, maybe 3. Without them, context is fuzzy. We lost another day chasing after those missing glyphs while the sky continued rearranging. Most of the world watched in awe. Only a minority panicked. Though that changed after the gamma burst. It struck Earth's magnetosphere like a sledge at 1837 UTC, compressing the Van Allen belts and blowing out transformers across Western Australia. Airliners lost avionics. Coastal towns drowned in darkness. The burst lasted less than 2 minutes, but radiation monitors spiked tenfold. NASA traced the origin to a magnetar just 4,000 light-years distant, normally a safe range. What triggered it now? We stared upward, hollow-eyed, as if the sky might answer. Sergei worked faster. By the 9th day, patterns of star motion slowed, as though the unseen choreographers waited for us to catch up. A lattice of points formed an unmistakable arrow curling around Sol's ecliptic, ending in a cross drawn through Earth's orbital track. A simple enough symbol. You are here, and here is fatal. Anyone could interpret that. Governments reacted by convening councils, drafting contingency plans. Evacuation to where? Lunar colonies existed only in prospectuses. Mars was a century away. Rumors said the Americans tried launching seed vaults into solar orbit. 3 rockets failed before clearing the tower. Whether by chance or sabotage, no one could tell. Sergei still insisted a deeper message lay buried in the starglyphs. They're giving instructions, he said, not just doom. We had already crossed 96 hours without meaningful sleep when he slammed both fists onto the console, startling Hannah to tears. I need a 3rd dimension of analysis, he shouted. Not spatial grammatical. Every node has a brightness ratio. That's declension. We've been reading nouns without verbs. I pulled him aside. Sergei, you're hallucinating. He jerked away. Help me, Marie, or keep out of my light. I chose help. Whatever the cost, comprehension mattered. So Hannah and I wrote code to assign each absolute magnitude a vowel sound, each color index a consonant. It was arbitrary, but after 1,000 iterations, one set of parameters produced recurring clusters, analogous to linguistic particles, conjunctions, pronouns. The code spat out a string of pseudo-English. Stop, fuel, feed, core, sun. Faisal stared at the line, mouth half open. Stop fuel feed? They're telling us to extinguish the sun? Or throttle it, Hannah said. Starlifting? The concept existed in theory, shave off stellar mass to regulate luminosity. Only hypothetical civilizations could manage it. Earth could not. "What do they think we are?" Faisal muttered as he hunched over the monitor. Maybe we're not the direct audience. Maybe this warning is for anyone who stumbles onto our sky. They could be shouting into the abyss and we happen to overhear. Humanity, alas, has never been good at staying uninvolved. Politicians demanded tangible solutions. Astrophysicists attempted to model solar die-off scenarios. Core mixing instabilities, neutrino deficits. Nothing suggested imminent collapse. Still, the star glyphs continued, now pulsing at intervals equal to prime numbers squared, 4, 9, 25, 49 seconds. Every cycle the arrow darkened. On day 11, China's Xinhua agency leaked drafts of the Mandarin translation generated by their own cryptographers. It matched ours. With one grim addition we hadn't parsed. Deadline ends. 14 D-Day, 14 days from the first glyph. We had 3 left. Fear spread faster than the solar wind. Markets crashed. Families rioted at grocery stores. Yet the sun shone golden and untroubled over every panic-clogged street. A cognitive dissonance took hold. The sky announced doom while daylight denied it. We at Pole Star Array had no illusions. If hyper-intelligent star movers declared an expiration date, the smart money said believe them. Still, what action could we take? We were 8,000 miles from the nearest space agency and armed with nothing but telescopes and a snowcat. That evening, Hannah found me in the equipment bay tightening a valve that didn't need tightening. "Marin," she said softly, "I think they're waiting for a reply." I wiped grease onto my parka. And what would we say? Her cheeks were salted with tears. Maybe we ask for help. Maybe we say we don't know how to stop fuel feed. The idea seemed ludicrous, but everything about our week was ludicrous. I told her to draft a beacon protocol using the large millimeter array on the ridge. We could modulate microwave pulses with the same prime-squared timing, echo back the arrow and the crossed orbit symbol followed by a new glyph, ? Sergi approved. Faisal cautioned that we'd be deaf to any reply for years unless the senders also violated causality. We did it anyway, punching microwaves toward the coordinates where the earliest rearranged star had appeared. At 3:02 on the 13th day, telescopes around the world recorded the snuffing of Mercury. 1 minute, the innermost planet gleamed like a pale ember in the dawn arc above South America. The next, it was gone, supplanted by a smear of dust glowing dull red. Spectrographs indicated vaporized silicates and iron sublimating along a hyperbolic trail. Mercury disintegrated by forces unseen. Humanity's final illusions cracked. Stock exchanges never opened that morning. Aeronautics controllers left their posts. From the deck of Pole Star, I watched southern lights ripple green across a sky where a planet had died, and I felt very small. Sergei returned to linguistics. "They escalated the warning," he said tonelessly. The new pattern of stars showed a second cross through Earth's orbit, this time thicker, the arrow's head smeared with additional spikes like a splash of blood. No translation needed. Within hours, UN channels filled with voices grown raw from weeping. Some demanded surrender. To what? None could say. Others suggested mass shelters underground. A faction argued we should launch every nuclear warhead sunward, as if to prove our willingness to fight for our star. None of it mattered. The deadline was 19 hours away. Night 14 descended upon the plateau, with wind keening like lost cattle. We gathered in the control room, each of us clinging to pointless tasks. Hannah checked power coils. Faisal aligned primary lenses even though no one would care tomorrow. Sergei paced the mezzanine, whispering verbs to himself. At 21:14 UTC, he froze mid-stride. They answered. On the main monitor, a cluster of 10 stars winked out, reappeared, forming a new glyph. Curved line, 3 dots, another curve. Halation, bright flickerings. Our code flagged it as interrogative. They'd received our query and responded with a question of their own. What did they ask? I said. Sergei translated haltingly. Capability. Accelerate exodus? It took us seconds to parse. Do you have the capability to accelerate your own evacuation? No, we hadn't. Despite ambitions, we were planetide primates. Sergei typed furiously, building a glyph string. Negative, capability, request instruction, and I transmitted on the microwave. The sky did not wait the years physics demanded. Response arrived inside 4 minutes. A ring of 8 formerly stable stars brightened to nova levels, outlining a schematic. Spiral arms curling inward, arrows pointing along the arms. At the hub, a blank circle crossed out. Our code and our intuition both spoke. Go to the edges. Flee the core. Get beyond the galactic habitable zone. Faisal whispered, they're telling us to run away from the center before it burns. Ironically, Sergei said, that's where Earth sits. Over the next 2 hours, the stars rearranged into an instruction manual whose steps outran our engineering by millennia. Harvest comets for water shielding, build generation vessels, ride the dark matter streams. Each glyph simpler than the last, as if addressing toddlers. At 3:47, 3 hours before deadline, Sergei's hands trembled violently. We cannot comply, he said. He laid the last translation on the table. If unable, then succeeded peace. Hannah stared. What does that symbol mean? Serge's eyes shone with tears. Mercy or euthanasia? I thought of Mercury shaved into vapor. Mercy viewed from a cosmic perspective might resemble extinction delivered swiftly instead of the slow boil of a galactic catastrophe. We lacked the tools to survive. The senders had tried. We had answered too late. Dawn of the 15th day bled gray over the plateau. At 5:12, the sun appeared as always, but its light felt brittle. We stood outside, linked hand in hand, breath intermingling. Humanity across the globe did similarly. Some in churches, some in bars, some alone beneath blankets. Waiting. At 5:46, the sky brightened, as though every star had ignited at once. Shadows vanished, instruments pegged into overload. The sun bloomed white and grew a halo of violet where fusion rates spiked beyond models. Coronal mass spooled outward in a shining cage, yet no heat reached us. Instead, a pressure like deep water folded the air flat. Time seemed to stall. I remember the taste of metal on my tongue, Hannah's fingers gouging my knuckles, Sergei murmuring one final word. Forgiveness. Before the horizon fractured, I expected fire. Instead, there was silence, an immense upwelling hush that swallowed wind in heartbeat and thought. The sun resolved into concentric shells, each peeling away faster than light, collapsing inward toward a singularity of darkness. Not a supernova, a controlled implosion, surgical, neat. In 60 seconds, the star that birthed us shrank to a pinprick and vanished. Night fell at noon. Auroras erupted like wounded dragons across every latitude. The ground shuddered as thermal gradients inverted. Oceans exhaled steam into frigid air. Then, in that sudden cold, new stars glimmered. 8 of them, equidistant, arranged in an arc around the dead hollow where Sol had lived. And beyond those 8, a river of lesser lights stretching toward the outer arm. A corridor. Faisal gasped. They made us a road? Gravitational arrays, I thought. A highway of artificial suns whose pull would sling any craft outward at relativistic speed. A last-minute gift. Too late for us. Within minutes, temperatures plunged. Ice crept across my lenses. Crawler batteries froze. We carried no hope of following that corridor, nor did any ship on Earth. The Mercy then lay in the sun's gentle extinguishing, rather than whatever broader peril loomed. Our extinction would be cold but painless, free of radiation storms or tidal shears. In the control room, diesel generators coughed out their final watts. Sergi sketched on his notepad despite the dark, pencil squeaking. "We should send gratitude," he said, "even if they never hear." We aimed the microwave horn one last time, pulsing 3 glyphs. "Thank you, peace." Hannah and Faisal huddled beneath thermal blankets while I watched the stars. For the first time since childhood, I felt no fear of them, only a vast sadness topped by awe. Whoever they were, they had written across the galaxy to warn us, teach us, spare us pain. We had been too slow to translate. Ice whispered along the walls. The last generator died, screen glow fading to black. I felt our little part of Earth turning gently through a cosmos that had just snuffed its parent flame. No brighter than an ember now, but still full of stories. I closed my eyes. Somewhere overhead, the rearranged constellations marched on, spelling elegies in languages I would never learn, charting roads I would never travel. Yet their light, or the echo of it, would sweep outward for ages, letters adrift in infinite sea. Maybe another fledgling world, farther from a galactic heart and richer in time, would read the warning in days rather than weeks. Maybe they would live. That thought warmed me, as darkness settled permanent and kind.